I have been collecting watches for over 10 years, and during that time I have bought over 500 watches and made many mistakes along the way. So in this video I wanted to share with you 8 helpful tips that will hopefully help you avoid these money and energy draining mistakes. And for those who have other tips, don't forget to leave them in the comments section so we can all benefit. And while you're at it, why not leave a like if you're enjoying the video? Thank you very much. But let's start right away by the first piece of advice, and that would be, as you have heard many times, buy what you like with a big asterisk. And you know this piece of advice, of course, because every major YouTuber and pretty much everyone in the comment section of every watch video is saying this. And although I totally agree, I would complete the statement by saying buy what you like, but know what you buy. This implies that a minimum of research has to be made before the purchase decision. What are you actually buying? How is the quality? Will it be a good fit for you? And of course, what are the positives and the negatives of the watch? And is it a good value? Not doing my due diligence has made me overpay for watches or get watches that I really did not like, especially when I started collecting. YouTube, and especially YouTube reviews like this channel, shameless plug, can be a good source of information. But always look for reviews giving you both positives and negatives about the watches. Otherwise, they are just disguised advertisements. In my reviews, I always try to expose both the positives and the negatives, because the perfect watch for everyone just simply does not exist. I also use reviews from major publications like Hodinkee, What You Seek, and others, mainly because they usually have access to the latest stuff that is not available to the common YouTuber. But the problem with these reviews is that they will almost always focus only on the positives, as they do not want to damage the privileges that they have with the brands. To sum it up, if you're considering getting a watch, get as much information as you can about it from different sources, try it on if you can, and then make an informed decision. Second tip, don't believe that more expensive is necessarily better. This doesn't apply only to the watch industry, but we're always under the impression that the more we pay, the more quality we can expect out of a product. And although this can often be the case, it is not a set rule. As an example from my own experience, when I first started collecting, I bought myself a first generation Oris Aquis. At over $1,000, at the time it was a very important spend for me, and few will argue that Oris is a great, historic and prestigious brand. However, within a few months I had problems with the clasp, which completely broke in the end. The movement also broke, and I was offered a €350 bill to repair it, and the rotating bezel also stopped spinning after a while. And even though I also have bought cheap watches that have stopped working, you would be surprised by how many of them are still working great after years of use. On that instance, I have made a video about AliExpress watches that still run after years of use. The link of that video is in the description below. This is not to say, of course, that cheap watches are better quality, but price doesn't always correlate with good quality. For instance, I have yet to find a Seiko NH35 movement from the dozens that I have that has failed me. And now, shameless plug, if you're enjoying the video, why not give it a like and subscribe to the channel so I can keep on bringing you content like this. Thank you very much. Next tip, take service costs into account. You might think that you have made a great deal on that vintage Omega you bought out of eBay, or maybe you got lucky and got a Rolex Submariner at retail. That's great and all, but don't forget that those watches will need to be serviced along the way. And remember that a basic Rolex service costs around $1,000, and that is if nothing needs to be replaced. This is not only the case with luxury watches, of course. If you live in a developed country, servicing even your most basic automatic watches will cost a couple $100, sometimes more than the price of the watch. And remember to multiply that by the number of watches you've got in your collection. So in the end, not factoring the service costs and maintenance can really leave you high and dry. Next tip, please don't tick boxes. I still see a lot of pieces of advice, even from major YouTube channels, telling you that you need one of each major watch in your collection. Any variation of a diver, a pilot, a chronograph, and a dress watch. They may be up to something if they mean that when you're starting collecting, you should experience many kinds of watches. But this can also be limiting and wasteful along the way. And it can lead you to having many watches in your collection that you don't actually wear or enjoy. Once you affirm your tastes, you will be the collector you want to be and collect what brings the most enjoyment to you. If you keep on being attracted only to divers, then so be it. Have a collection only made of them. If you want to have many versions of the same watch, then by all means. There is no correct path to watch collecting. The best collection is the one that brings you the biggest satisfaction. Which actually leads me to the next point. The cost to fun ratio. Yes, have the most fun out of your timepieces and for the least amount of money as possible. This is what I call the cost to fun ratio. Sorry to be so self-centered here, but I will once again dig from my own experience to illustrate. My Seiko Monster 2nd generation, I bought it 10 years ago, second-hand for under $200. And I absolutely love its quirkiness, its extremely potent lume, and the fact that it runs within 10 seconds a day, even almost 10 years after I bought it. It makes me feel like the smartest buyer in the world. I never intend on servicing it unless it breaks, and even if it does, I will have the movement replaced and it will cost pretty much nothing. And if it gets scratched or banged against the door, I really don't mind. And all that gets me a lot of satisfaction, especially given the low price that I paid for it. Ergo, the cost to fun ratio is very high with that watch. On the other side of the spectrum, there's my Rolex GMT Master 2 Batman, an amazing watch, highly desirable, great lume, and as accurate as a quartz. But it sits in my bank vault. I'm actually afraid to wear it in the crime-ridden cities we live in, and it cost me $10,000. Many would argue that it's an asset, that I can sell it anytime and get my money back even more, but using the same amount buying the S&P 500 would get me a much better return today. And then again, when I have to service it, all that gain over retail will melt like snow in the Sahara, and it will really turn in a plain loss when the second-hand dealer I try to sell it to tries to lowball me. So high price over low fun equals low fun ratio. Next piece of advice, don't rush in, research, wait. We have already alluded to this on the previous point, but I wanted to add the waiting factor to the equation. Once you've done your due diligence and you're set on a watch, wait for a while, a few days, even a couple of weeks, to see if you're still craving for that watch. If that is still the case, then you know it's true love and that the watch should be part of your collecting journey. If it is not, then just move on. Next piece of advice, be really careful with scammers. The watch world is full of scams and you have to be extra careful, especially when paying a lot of money for watches. So watches upwards of $1,000 I have seen from my experience. I myself have gotten scammed 2 times majorly, and both of them have been from sites like Craigslist here in France, and I lost over 305,000 euros overall. One time the watch I was sold was a fake, even though I thought that I had checked all the boxes to really see that it wasn't. I was still scammed. The other time was when a fake watch company tried selling me a Turpelagos for a really low price with a supposed scroll system and a quite complex scam that actually fooled me. Needless to say, the watch never arrived and the company vanished soon afterwards. This will sound like a cliche, but really, if the deal sounds too good to be true, it's because it is. Instead, especially when buying expensive watches, buy from a reputable second-hand dealer who ideally gives you some kind of warranty. And last piece of advice, make your own mistakes. No amount of advice will ever suffice. You have to make your own mistakes to understand what kind of watches you enjoy. But here you have what I consider the basics to go out in this horological jungle and be somehow safe. If it helps, I'm going to leave you here with my recommendations of watches you might want to consider, and also with watches that I really don't think that you should buy. Thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you really soon in those videos. Goodbye.